Welcome to Mamamia Out Loud, what we've been actually talking about on Monday, the 11th of August. I'm Holly Wainwright, and it just occurred to me I might be shouting. I had some feedback this week that sometimes when I talk, I wake a baby.
And that I can be too quiet. So I'm working on my loudness on the podcast.
But when I just jumped in and went, hello, I suddenly thought, shit, I've just woken the nation's babies. I apologise.
I got feedback that I was speaking over Jessie Stevens, and it just happened. I'm so sorry, Jessie. It's just that what I'm saying is more interesting than you. I'm Amelia
The
Lester.
feedback was from Ceci Jivens on my burner account. I'm Jessie Stevens.
I'm Amelia Lester.
And here's what made our agenda for today. Does every group chat in your life spawn 2 more group chats?
Yes. Plus, are some issues just not up for debate? As a former high school debater, that will surprise no one, this is personal for me.
And the surprising reason why divorce rates in Australia are at a 50-year low.
But first, Jessie Stevens.
In case you missed it, Instagram just launched a new feature that shows all your followers where you are right now.
Hate it.
So this rolled out in the US last week, with lots of users claiming that they were shocked to find their whereabouts was being shared to their followers without their knowledge. The head of Instagram, his name is Adam Masori, released a statement in response assuring users that to start, location sharing will be off, but you can opt in, so you can better connect with your friends on Instagram. It is likely that this feature will come to Australia very soon, which comes with a whole host of concerns, including things like tech-based coercive control. 1 in 5 young adults, according to recent research, believe it is reasonable to track a partner's location. So that's just become the default. So if it's on an app that everyone's watching where they are, then it becomes sort of conspicuous if you turn it off.
Yep.
Holly, why would anyone want their followers to know where they are right now?
I have no idea. But it's really interesting because I saw this and quite a few people shared it with me on the weekend because I'm on the record several times of saying I hate location sharing. Yeah. I don't track anyone in my house.
You won't let Mia track you as hard as she tries. She tries to put like little tags around your neck and you're like, nah.
She's dropping air tags into her pockets. And I am allergic to it. I don't really know why. I need to prosecute this at some point. But generally speaking, I just think privacy, none of your business.
Yeah.
Not even big safety concerns, just like you don't need to know where I am and what I'm doing. Nobody needs to know that.
I think secrets are a basic human right.
So do I.
I don't even have them. I just think I have the right to have them.
Exactly. And it's interesting because, I mean, you just sort of mentioned this about how it's become table stakes in relationships, but the New York Times ran a story recently that like, are you at location sharing level? It's like going Instagram official, you know, changing your status in your whatever update and location sharing. It's supposed to be the ultimate intimacy. And I cannot understand it. But I think we know why the tech platform would do this.
Why? Why would Instagram want to do this?
So, A, they believe their audience want it. But more pertinently, the more information they have about us, the more things they can sell us. To us. We all know that, right? Data mining is the number one thing that tech companies like to do. And if they know where you are, they can target you better with ads of all kinds.
Okay, because this came at an interesting time, which is, I think just in the last week, there was this massive lawsuit that wrapped up in California. Have you seen this?
No, tell me.
So Meta illegally collected data from another app so that it could specifically target people. That other app was Flow, which I have on my phone.
The period app?
Yeah, the period app. So it is a health app. It is, I think, the most downloaded women's health app. Now, why would they want information on where I am in my cycle? Why would they want that? Well, my mood changes. There are concerns about weight, or maybe I have a breakout. Do you want to sell me a special cream? Maybe you notice that at my luteal phase, I have less impulse control. So we can start kind of putting those ads out. It's been a massive, massive deal, and they've been punished for it. And a lot of Flow users have gone, hang on, this, you know, starts a lot of privacy concerns. But this is why people are very suspicious of Meta.
It's interesting because Instagram called this, and I love this phrase, a new lightweight way to connect, which sounds so nice. But you know who doesn't want to connect and share his location? Mark Zuckerberg. There was a fascinating expose this weekend in the New York Times about how he's basically bought up an entire suburb in Northern California outside San Francisco because he doesn't want anyone near him. So he lives in one large house. He has also bought 11 houses around his house.
Wow.
And for a cost of, they estimate about 150 million Aussie dollars. Now, he is worth 270 billion, so don't worry too much about that. But he's even opened a private school in one of these 11 houses, which goes against all the zoning regulations for his 2 daughters and 10 other children. And neighbours say they can no longer walk down the street. They can't use the footpath outside his house without being asked to move along by men in large SUVs.
Privacy.
And they're always having parties and blocking driveways, and they've even had the city block off streets successfully so that no one can get near the parties. So someone's not interconnecting.
Oh, it's not about connecting.
You know what, though? I have, as you know, I have this allergic reaction to location sharing, but certainly my daughter and her friends don't even blink about it. They don't even think about it. They think it's so normal. Because they can all look at where each other are at all times. And the only reason that they can see for turning off your location sharing on Snap Maps or whatever is that you would be literally doing something that you shouldn't be doing or something that you know your friends would get mad with you about. So the set expectation is unless you are behaving badly, you should have no reason for privacy. And I wonder if the people who like us, well, not necessarily us, but me, who are arcing up about this are just outsiders in that generation where it just is the most normal thing in the world.
Because this is Snap Maps, right?
Yes,
this is what we do. Just like TikTok kind of makes video and then Instagram goes really hard on Reels. Like this is the kind of thing you do. But you hear stories of people going, oh, I discovered that my friend is back with her ex-boyfriend because on Snap Maps I could see where she was. You just wait. Matilda, you wait until you have secrets like the rest of us.
It's true. And of course, we should point out there are genuine safety concerns with this kind of location sharing being used in bad relationships, bad faith actors and stalking. Like it's really, really interesting.
I'm not going to try and break it down on an intellectual level. I just find a chick that's been with way too many guys, I find that unattractive.
She knows what she's doing.
But
that's great. She knows what she's doing. She's experienced.
I don't want that.
Fantastic.
I want to be her first.
Who gives a shit?
That important contribution
to knowledge
to the exploration of the human condition came from Dean Wells, an expert on masculinity. No, just kidding. Dean Wells was on season 5 of Married at First Sight. But he did appear last week on an episode of SBS's The Feed. The Feed is a current affairs show, and this episode made people very upset. It was called Men Debate Masculinity, and it was a 43-minute debate that dropped on YouTube on Friday. SBS introduced the segment, perhaps justified what was to come, by saying these are claims and opinions that are being debated online. What I love about that is literally everything can be put under the umbrella of claims and opinions that are being debated online. And we heard, the opinions certainly ran the gamut from acceptable to not so acceptable, frankly. The first contention put to the group of 6 panellists, and which Dean was trying to answer in that clip you just heard, wasn't actually about women, despite the fact that Dean was talking about women. The contention that was put to them was having lots of sexual partners is tied to your status as a man. Here's what Clayton Harrop, who was billed as a men's coach, had to say about women with what he called a high body count.
It's the same as a car. This is a crude example.
Women are not cars, bro.
No.
Women are not cars.
Do you take care of your car? Do you really, when it's yours and yours alone, we take a lot of pride.
I don't want other people driving my car, put it that way.
Not to say that she's less because of it, but Can I throw
But it is inherently that.
Just jumping in, can we hear from Mitch? I haven't heard from you.
I don't really want to contribute to this one. It's kind of derailed a bit. I think we move on.
I'm most offended by how terrible that argument is. I know that the nature and what he's actually saying is deeply offensive to women, but the quality of the argument is so poor.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not tremendously revealing. And that's what I wanted to talk about here today, because I want to talk about whether there's any value in airing out views like this. Just to give you some other, I watched this so you don't have to. At another point, Dean Wells said, we need men to basically stop being in therapy because it's over-feminizing them. Mm. And Clayton, the guy who compared women to cars, kept talking about women's purity, like we're a cleaning product. It upset me, and it upset a lot of other people. Mia Finlay accused SBS of rage baiting. And interestingly, one of the panelists, Jeff Kasubi, wrote later about the experience on Pedestrian, and I just want to read a little bit of what he wrote. He said, from the moment we sat down, it became clear that nuance was not the priority. Mm-hmm. Who knew? Reaction took precedence over care. The loudest voices in the room were often those most unwilling to listen. Particularly the opinions of men of colour were dismissed, and they were dismissed under the excuse of, it's just my opinion. Because I should say that another one of the panellists, Charang Chawla, who was an anti-violence campaigner whose sister was murdered by her husband, he came out afterwards and said he did see value in participating. He said that if just one man starts to question the culture that we've built as a result of his participation in this show, then there is value in that. But do we think that a debate of this sort ever changes minds, Holly?
No, I don't think it changes minds, because I think that a lot of people just hear what they came here to hear. If you see what I mean? Like I watched quite a bit of this morning, and I wasn't particularly surprised by some of what some of these guys were saying, because I hear it on the internet all the time. Do I think it's dangerous that it got aired on SBS's YouTube channel? No. Do I think that it was a sort of cheap and not very evolved debate? Yes. I also think that SBS were clearly couching, like trying to hedge their bets, because, for example, when Harrop was talking about purity, they put up a little box at the bottom that said context, and it said purity culture can be damaging because blah, 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 blah. And every now and again it would flash up a fact check or, another context box or a helpline or whatever. So they obviously knew that this was going to get a lot of criticism. The thing that was a bit disturbing to me to watch, and thank God for Charang, who is a tireless campaigner for women's safety, but is that what you were watching kind of felt a little bit like these. You could divide that panel into these three kind of very physically large masculine guys who did, as Jeff Kasubi said, they did shout the loudest. They did talk over everybody else. And then it became it was sort of like an ugly parody of what it was supposed to be debating. Do you know what I mean?
I felt that SBS did a decent job of addressing that. At times they jumped in and they said, we haven't heard from Tarang. And in that way, I think the moderation was useful. I actually really support this format for a few reasons. The first is that I really liked that they didn't have an audience. I think that when you have an audience, it totally changes the nature of the debate, because people are speaking for applause and for clout in a way that they might say something that sounds really effective, but when you actually drill down onto it, they haven't actually said anything. I found that in a lot, and I'm thinking about the trend, particularly in the US, where it's so-and-so schools, so-and-so, and they go and, speak to a college student or whatever, and you hear people in the audience booing or gasping, and I think that really throws people, and I don't think that that's conducive to good debate. So I quite liked that they just had the six men.
Do you think it was a debate, though? Do you think anyone was listening?
But I don't.
That's my problem with this, and I know we're moving on to some of the other forms of debate we're seeing everywhere at the moment. I don't know that anyone was listening to each other.
They weren't. They were speaking at each other, not to each other, and this is the issue with plucking people from their social media bubbles. Like you, Holly, I actually think put Dean Wells on that platform. Yeah. I think that was a good call, and I think that it's like, if you think that Dean Wells doesn't already have influence and already have a platform, you're wrong. He's got 84,000 followers on Instagram.
He likes to comment on what we talk about quite a lot.
Oh, yeah. So if you put him in there, at least hold him to some sort of account, and I think he was probably on slightly better behaviour than he normally would. What it uncovered is that a lot of these men don't actually have an argument. There was no substance to their argument. Dean Wells, hearing at the beginning, him trying to say, I'm not going to try and break it down on an intellectual level. I mean, that's the purpose of a debate. But no one was listening. The whole point of a debate is that there's curiosity and there's humility and there's like leaning in and trying to understand and engage with the other side's points. But there wasn't any there a lot of the time. It was just them talking about how they like chicks who have had sex with less people. Like, that's not an argument. And that's not the feed's fault.
I don't criticize the feed, except for, as I said, I found the sort of context boxes and stuff a little bit like, we know what people are going to say, so let's say it first.
Yeah.
Because I agree with you. These people are out there saying this all the time. It's not a bad thing for me to understand that, for other people to understand that. But I want to know, especially as you said, Amelia, at the beginning, that you, like Jessie, did a lot of debating at school. When you just said, Jessie, the point of a debate is to lean in and be curious and be interested, is it? Or is the point of this kind of debate, it's a competition?
We're paying too much attention to people who don't have very interesting viewpoints or who are not moving the debate forward. And we've started treating debate as entertainment when it's meant to be about edification and about sharing informed viewpoints and finding consensus in those informed viewpoints. So I want to bring in another upsetting YouTube debate that I watched last week. This one was from Jubilee, which is a company that's arguably done more than I would say any other company to turn debating into a competitive sport. So they have this format that they call Surrounded. Someone sits in the middle of a circle of 20 people who disagree with them. And they literally race to debate against this poor person in the center of the circle.
It's a bit Jerry Springer-y. In a way, it feels. I kept waiting for violence to break out in this particular one.
It is a bit Jerry Springer.
Amelia.
So this one, I kept hearing about it and how dramatic and extreme it got. So I did watch it. 10 million people watched it along with me. British-born American citizen Mehdi Hassan was surrounded by what Jubilee called 20 far-right conservatives. And Hassan definitely held his own. I mean, he's written whole books about debating and how to be an effective debater, and he is an extremely effective debater. But what he said afterwards is that he was prepared for a lot of really extreme viewpoints. He was not expecting overt racism, and that is what he got. One person yelled at him to go back to where he came from. Another one sat down and immediately started asking him about what his ethnic heritage was. And he happens to be of Indian descent, but he couldn't understand the relevance to that. They were meant to be talking about Donald Trump. And so Hassan, I think, interestingly started to regret participating in this event. He is a professional debater, and he walked away from that thinking, what did I achieve there? And at one particularly tense moment in the debate, he simply stopped debating. He refused to debate. And it was because he found himself speaking to someone who self-identified as a fascist. And later he said, that's my line. Fascism is violence. It is not about solving political disagreements through talking and consensus and elections. And I will not speak to someone who identifies as a fascist. So when even the professional debater is saying, I'm done with debating, I wonder if we've reached this point where it's becoming almost impossible to have a civilized debate. And I wanted to throw this back at the two of you a bit, but I remember that in fairly recent history on this podcast, you've celebrated the fact that you were able to disagree with one another respectfully. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like over the last couple of years, I've noticed a bit of a pulling back on that messaging. Is that because our times have become so polarized that we don't even want to debate amongst people who we basically agree with?
I feel as though our tolerance for disagreement might have gone down a little. People might feel as though everywhere they look, in their feeds, at their dinner tables, there is just constant disagreement. And in saying that, I think that we often do disagree about things on this show. But when the stakes of something is very, very high and the potential of seriously hurting someone is there, I think we're probably more careful than we were before. I think it's probably because this show has grown and our platform has grown, and with that comes more responsibility. But I was thinking, Amelia, you kind of clarified something for me there, because what a lot of the analysis has said is that you've got Ben Shapiro. For people who don't know him, he's kind of a right-wing conservative voice in the US, and he, I would say, popularized the fight me. Like I think it's almost the WWE of debating, of using debating as entertainment, but also as sport. Like he's this guy who will say, abortion is wrong. Like, fight me. And then he speaks really quickly, doesn't listen to the other person at all, and then owns them in capital letters, and then the video goes viral.
Yeah.
The new version of that is Charlie Kirk. And Charlie Kirk goes to universities. You've probably seen him on your feed. Someone says something and he'll go, but what is a woman? Or something. And then that's kind of like, oh, he wins and everyone boos, and it's just this kind of spectacle. And a lot of places in the US have said, where's even the Jubilee, the guy who created Jubilee, people have said, well, why aren't you platforming the left-wing version of Kirk or Shapiro? And he's like, point to them. There isn't left-wing versions. What you clarified for me is the cost of doing that if you are not a white straight man. So if you are not the thing about Shapiro or Kirk is that they feel they can play with ideas in a way that if you are any minority, it becomes about your identity. So people will start to mock you. This happens in the public eye. I remember Hamish McDonald on Q&A. His trolling wasn't about his ideas. It was about the fact that he was gay. Like it was homophobia. Same with anyone in the public eye, Waleed Ali or any woman. It just becomes about their identity.
Or Mehdi Hassan on Jubilee.
Exactly. So what happens is it becomes white men shouting at minorities or feeling like they can have debates because it doesn't really impact them, maybe, the outcome.
Also, they're not viewing it as sport. Like, I think there is a danger to the fact that this has become entertainment. It feels like the new, Colosseum, the new Gladiator. Like watching the bits of this that I watched, the Jubilee conversation, there's a point at which one of the guys who's sitting opposite Hassan says, what's going on in the US right now? And the guy who's saying this is one of the far-right guys. He's saying it's tribal warfare, right? He's saying it's tribal warfare, that's where we are. And the thing is that that's how this is all set up. It's set up as fun and games, and it's not fun and games for so many people who are directly affected by these arguments, right? So I can't say that I think that the left have a completely clean slate on this. I mean,
I agree.
I can't remember his name, but there are plenty of late night TV guys who, during various election cycles, get a lot of sport out of going to Trump rallies and interviewing people and making them look dumb, and broadcasting that and making let's all lol at the stupid rednecks. That's kind of their trope, and that trope has been out there for a long time, and plenty of people think it isn't a coincidence that a lot of the so-called stupid rednecks, in inverted commas, have got sick of that, feel empowered by it. Now they want to own the libs and own the feminists and own it's all ugly and it's all competition and there's no respect. And to the point about respectful disagreement, I think I would still defend that position, but I think that there's a very crucial component you need for any disagreement to be respectful. I remember someone saying to me ages ago about Out Loud, they said one of the reasons why you can disagree respectfully is that although you disagree about lots of things, you share values. Like we can argue about various things, but nobody's sitting here genuinely thinking as some of the guys on The Surrounded clearly did, that they are fascists, that they believe that white people are superior. The very basics of the values that they're talking about are too extreme for debate, to the point here, Whereas I think to disagree respectfully, you have to kind of agree on the basic parameters of what we all think humanity is and what we all think the way that a civilized society should work.
Which is why Mehdi Hassan refused to debate the fascists, because he says, well, we don't have that common ground anymore.
But should he have agreed to go in that circle in the first place? It's interesting because it's self-promotion for him, like with all respect. I mean, I genuinely, the first 5 minutes of that, I thought, gosh, what a brave guy. But he's got his own news platform. He's promoting it. This is all sport. It's all sport. It's all show. It's all gladiators. It's not actually, when you said earlier, Amelia, the point of actual debate and what it's supposed to do, that's not what any of this is about. And
So what do we do though? Do we all just yell into our own voids? Because social media has deteriorated the standard of discourse so much that it is not about, I was reading something the other day that said go hard on structures, go easy on people. We don't do that anymore. We do the complete opposite. And everyone wants to present monologues into the void and ignore anything that comes back. We are now just doing that in person.
I agree. I agree. I don't know, Amelia, what do you think?
I was struggling with it because I remember when we talked about Adolescence, the Netflix show on here, and the importance of talking to men. It's not just a women's problem that there's violence against women, and there's not just a women's problem that women continue to be discriminated against. We've got to talk to men. Well, I guess SBS decided to take us up on that and talk to men. And so I'm reluctant to sit here and then criticize men for speaking honestly and openly about what they really think. However, I do want to make a pitch. We talked about how debating has become sport. I am watching Unreal on Netflix, which is behind the scenes of WWE, weirdly compelling.
Oh, yeah.
And it features actually an Australian woman, Rhea Ripley, who is the world champion in women's wrestling. It's sort of like the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders documentary, but for wrestling. Watch WWE when you want to see people duke it out in the ring using violence. That's great. Doesn't hurt anyone most of the time. Debating should remain boring, just like it was when we were in high school,
exactly
Jessie,
right.
and everyone made fun of us for being nerds. That's how it should be.
Well, politics should be boring. Like leading is boring, governing is boring. We've just seemed to have, everything has to be entertaining now and everything has to be 30 seconds. I made a new group chat last week. This is unusual.
It's not like you.
No, I'm not generally the instigator of group chats. I'm generally the person who is added to them against my will. Within 3 hours, that group chat had spawned another separate group chat with 2 extra people in it. And then there was obviously the direct chat with the person who was the subject of the group chat in the first place. So by Tuesday afternoon, I had 3 new conversations going that I didn't have going on Monday, and yet the same amount of hours in my day. The great group chat contagion was the subject of a Guardian column by Polly Hudson this week, who wrote, "You can mute, but you can never leave. Why have WhatsApp groups become so stressful?" And in it, she gave this example of how group chats just spawn more and more group chats. "A friend of mine has a group with 5 mums from her daughter's class and another whittled down to 4 of them, then more with 3, 2 and 1. How she keeps track without the use of murder investigation board with red strings pinned to photographs is genuinely a mystery." And then, of course, there is the very particular anxiety of putting the wrong thing in the wrong chat. I was trying to come up with a cool name for it. I haven't really got one. Chat-anxiety? No, we're not going to make that happen. Jessie, why do chats spawn chats spawn chats? And how the hell do we feed and clothe ourselves with so much communication to be attended to at all times?
Mine do not have 3 offshoots, which suggests to me I'm not invited to them. So I am concerned that, for example, our Out Loud WhatsApp, that's all I got. There is no other one. I feel like there could be a Mia Holly. Maybe there's a Mia Holly Amelia.
We have a group chat with the hosts,
Yeah.
and then we also have one with our EP Ruth, so that's 2.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just worried.
I just want to point out I'm not in even the primary group
goodness.
chat here.
I'm so
So
sorry.
now we're going to need another
Awkward.
one that's
All
got
it is-
Amelia and Em.
is Mia homework where she sends really obscure links
does.
and then we feel guilty that we haven't read them and I go, oh, wow, I'll read that. So it's not, you don't want to be there. Look, we talked about this at our live show a few months ago because this is a uniquely female phenomenon, as I have discovered. I decided before our live show, I was like, I'm going to look at Luca's group chats because I swear that man he doesn't have a part-time job group chatting, whereas I feel like I do. And there are not 4-minute voice notes in Luca's group chats like there are for mine. There are not polls. There are not the enthusiastic performance of upcoming event, which I feel like women need to do. There are not the constant offshoots. They are so much less pressured. Like women are the backbone of WhatsApp and Messenger and all of our different, I feel like someone's making money. Every time we make a new group chat, someone at WhatsApp is rubbing their hands together going, what would we do without the women?
It's another house for Mark Zuckerberg.
Exactly right. Exactly. That he can use for his little enclave. But how is it? It's like women feel like they need to water their group chats like little plants. While men are, when I went through Luca's group chats, I would find like he'd sent a TikTok and then someone would say, I don't get it, and then never respond again. There were maybe a poll that had nothing, a 27-second phone call. Like there was just no trying to the same degree that women are. Why do women feel this pressure and this stress to be so actively social in our group chats and then to make all the offshoots?
There was a very funny Curb Your Enthusiasm episode where Larry David was basically being schooled in the fact that you have to heart or thumbs up messages that women just routinely do. But he needed to be told, no, you must acknowledge this important message where someone is telling you they just got engaged or just had a baby. You got to give it a heart. But I don't think that's instinctive for a lot of men.
No, it's absolutely not. It's like they're not there. I find often you set up a group chat like with a family, and then what you do is the next day you make the group chat with just the women. Because why were the men even?
Yes.
Like you don't even keep them across it
I have
anymore.
a friend group like that. We have a group chat for the friend group, and then we have one with just the women in the friend group. And I wonder if the men have one for just the men in the friend group. I don't think they do.
Holly, when you introduced this segment, I admit I felt a little bit paranoid because are you saying that part of the group chat spawning is about people essentially bitching about other people in the group chat?
Well, not in my world, but I
Of course not.
But I think that, yes, certainly. I think that because there are things, even if it's not bitching, the thing about big group chats, so think about the classic one, which might be the school group or the football team, for parents, right? This is, or in a non-parent environment, the one for somebody's hen do, birthday dinner, whatever. And like lots of people are in there, and some people you know and some people you don't. And so within that group, there are messages that are for everyone. And then there's a little bit of chat you need to have on the side, not necessarily about them, but say when I had a group chat going for my friend's 50th, she had 50 people in that. Not all of them needed to be weighing in on what the present should be, but like a core group did. So then we needed another group chat for that. The things that happened in that had to be reported back in the big one. And then you can't ever leave that group, even though the 50th birthday was 6 months ago, because it seems a bit rude.
Yeah. I've got group chats that are quite big. Like let's say they've got 20 people in them, and then I see that 4 of those people went to dinner last week, and I go, okay, at some point the new group chat was spawned, and it was decided that these 4 would make this particular dinner arrangement. How did I not make the cut?
This happened to me recently. I have a group of friends from high school, and they decided to go on a trip to Melbourne together. But it was at the time when I was out of the country. I'm unclear whether they decided this way or not. But I respectfully asked them to take the planning for the Melbourne trip to another chat.
Yes.
Start a new chat. Because I don't want to hear how excited you all are about getting the massages at the hotel and
Did you ask them to
restaurant
do
you're going
that?
to dinner.
Did you ask them to do that in the group?
I did.
So in the group you said,
take it elsewhere, ladies. Get a room. Get a room. And now I think they're just over there because the main chat has gone dead.
Oh.
There's new in-jokes and they're all just making the in-jokes
and
in the other
photos
thread.
from the trip. Last week for a show that I'm doing for Mid, which is my other podcast that has group chats too, Jessie, I asked like people for friendship dilemmas. And one lady sent me a friendship dilemma that she was very angry that one of her friends in her group chats never replies in a timely fashion. And she was making her feel like she didn't care about her. So that she'd say she might put some personal news in there, like quite serious personal news. And the other people would all jump in with like, oh, I'm so sorry, or I hope you're okay, or whatever. But this one person.
Yes.
They have their notifications off.
But then I think that's me.
Yeah.
Oh, so what advice did you give her? Just relax?
Well, I think that you should be, so my advice was everybody's got a different communication rhythm.
Yeah.
But this woman was very upset about it. She said timely fashion several times. So I just would like us to clarify what a timely fashion is.
Oh, see, I would literally give someone 3 or 4 days. I reckon when we're over a week, it's like, okay, you saw it and you forgot to reply. And sometimes that does get offensive and you feel, especially when you know that they've read it.
3 or 4 days?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Everyone has their phone at all times and I know you're taking them to the toilet. No, 3 to 4 hours is what I expect.
The first cut of Wuthering Heights, the latest movie adaptation of Emily Bronte's Gothic masterpiece, has reportedly been shown to a test audience in Dallas, Texas. Would you like a sneak peek? And you don't get to say no.
Okay. Yep.
Because I know you might.
Since when do we go to test audiences and then we get leaks?
Well, this is the thing. So lots and lots of movies are tested, obviously. They test big movies. But it seems to be a bit new that now it's all leaking out. I read all about this on a blog called World of Real. I don't even know how real World of Real is. But they apparently interviewed all the people who came out of the test screening.
I feel like you would have signed some sort of like non-disclosure thing, but okay.
They weren't named. This is what Word of Real reported. Audience reaction inside the theatre was largely mixed, with some visible... Well, maybe they were in there. Maybe Word of Real were in there. With some visible restlessness, while others were won over. The film, described by one attendee as aggressively provocative and tonally abrasive, leans hard into Fennell's now familiar brand of stylized depravity. If you're wondering how depraved, I apologise for what I'm about to say.
Because Emerald Fennell is the writer-director.
Yeah.
Context. And she did Saltburn and she did Promising Young Woman. Yes.
And Saltburn was a wonderful film in many levels, but all anyone ever wants to talk about are the really, really rude bits.
Yeah.
So anyway, again, I apologise for what I'm about to say. The film opens with a public hanging that quickly descends into grotesque absurdity as the condemned man ejaculates mid-execution, sending the onlooking crowd into a kind of orgiastic frenzy.
Is that a thing?
And none even fondles the corpse's visible erection.
World of Real had fun with that word fondles, didn't it?
It really did.
Yeah.
I
see you, World of Real.
It's been a while. And it is one of my favourite books. So why don't I remember the nun and the erection in Wuthering Heights, Amelia?
Oh, look, I really miss the days when all we knew about this Wuthering Heights was that Margot Robbie was wearing a lovely, slightly 80s styled wedding dress in it. Remember those blurry pics? That's all we knew. And it sounded promising. And now I just feel like we know too much about movies before they come out.
Yeah. So I fundamentally don't believe in pre-promotion of anything. I believe that there is such thing. I think hype is finite. And if you start the hype too early, by the time we drop the film, I'm over it and I have fatigue.
But do your book publicists agree with that?
Good question. There's a lead up where you kind of go book is coming, but I would say that you can go book is coming too many times and it's like, stop telling me that until I can buy the book.
Yeah, you really go hard on the book promotion once pre-orders are open.
Yeah, once
Before
someone
that,
can
it's
do
a waste
a thing.
of time. You need to give them action. The thing that's interesting about this is you're right, Jessie, because the other thing that might happen, and this is also happening at the minute in the culture with The Devil Wears Prada too. Different. I don't think there are any nuns, erections, fondling going on in that. But we've all seen
Stanley Tucci's involved.
That's true. We've all seen the photos, or I imagine we have, of and in some cases video of Anne Hathaway and our very own Patrick Bramall walking down the street, and she's twirling around a lamppost and he's like looking very sharp and skinny in a suit. Like, I already feel I know too much about the plot of that movie. Is one of the dangers of this much excitement pre-promotion, for example, that I've already made my mind up that I don't want to go and see Wuthering Heights by the time it comes out.
Oh, we know way too much about Devil Wears Prada too. Do you know we know the code name that they're using for the movie on the New York sets?
What is it?
Cerulean. Which is brilliant, referring, of course, to the famous scene in the first one where Meryl Streep's character talks about how she sets the tone and picks the colours for the next season. I do think movies need a bit of mystery. I heard it said once that good movie stars retain a sense of intrigue, and that's why you put on your hard pants and you go and pay to go to the movies to see a movie star, because you want more of them than you're getting. And they're always having to toe this line between reminding you that they exist and not getting too overexposed so there's no mystery. And the quintessential movie star is, of course, Tom Cruise. And Tom Cruise is a movie star because we literally don't know where he lives. It might be England. We don't know anything
It could be
else.
Mars.
It could be. And I think that perhaps they've always taken pictures on set, right? That's not new. What's new is the ubiquity of those images, is that I can't go through my feed. I actually do not care about the Devil Wears Prada 2 spot. I don't care.
But not even about Patrick Bramall.
Not really. And I've been bombarded with images and actually spoilers from that they've managed to gauge through all of it, that by the time it comes out, it's just like, where's the interest?
Are you more interested in the nun fondling the erection?
Look,
It's more edgy.
is the best advertisement for a film I have heard in a long time, because there is not much we haven't seen that I haven't seen.
The World of Real went on to be like, they seem to have great chemistry, these actors. They're talking about Jacob Elordi and Margot Robbie, obviously. But the characters are so cold and unlikable. Again, I do remember that from the book. I do.
Let World of Real have this. This is their Watergate.
My favourite thing about this whole conversation has been Amelia saying, putting on your hard pants. Are your hard pants the ones that don't have a stretchy waistband?
I wear stretchy waistbands to the movies all the time. Australia's divorce rate is the lowest it's been in 50 years. And the question I have is why? Do people just love each other more? That's the question. If you think that it is because we are somehow better at relationships or that ever since Amelia and I got married, the love is stronger, you would be very, very wrong. One significant factor is the cost of divorcing. So a cheap marriage dissolution starts upwards of $10,000.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought you could just do it online at divorce.com.
I actually did too. I didn't know it was this expensive.
It's also just all the knock-on. And then also the other big financial consideration is obviously for a great number of families, imagine in this economy halving your income and yet still having all the same expenses.
Well, actually,
it's a very expensive business.
And housing.
Having more,
Yeah. Well, that's the most expensive of all. Like,
exactly.
You now have to pay for two homes,
Yeah.
etc. So it's an expensive business.
And it's prohibitive for a lot of couples. So one growing trend is living apart together, where a couple live separately but in the same house, often for the sake of the children. Another reason divorce is lower is because of a practice called relationship testing prior to marriage. So this is about cohabiting before marriage, where you might live together for 5 or 10 years. Therefore, you know whether you live well together, which appears to lead to greater success and longevity.
I don't approve of that.
Really,
No.
Charlie Kirk?
Mm-mm.
Oh, no.
Why not?
Well, I did not live with my partner before marriage. Now, that could have had something to do with the fact that he was in Washington, D.C. and I was in Sydney, but I choose to lean into the idea of purity. That's why we did it.
Dean Wells would be like, you are
He'd
a
approve.
high-status woman.
This is the most shocking thing I've learnt about Amelia. Like this,
He only ever saw me in hard pants until after we were married. And then I pulled out my tracksuits.
Oh my God, it was the soft pant big reveal. I get the logistics of that, but you could have still, when you finally did merge your lives, you could have done that with cohabitation. Had you cohabited before and so you were like, I know I'm getting very personal here. Had you cohabited before and that's why you were like, no, put a ring on it?
The answer to that is in two parts. Yes, I had cohabited. That's a hard word to say, isn't it?
like
That's really why I didn't do it. It was too hard to
animals.
pronounce.
Yeah.
I had, but also, I was in my 30s. I was ready to get on with it. I just all or nothing did.
Wow, I'm really impressed. I didn't know you were like, it's such a romantic notion to me that you'd go, screw it, let's jump straight in.
Tiny bit of condescension there, but I'll take it. I'll take it.
I promise not. I just mean more, as Jessie's saying, it's very common now. I don't know what the stats are exactly, but because obviously it changes with cultural, all kinds of cultural things. But it just seems like a very romantic idea. Let's jump straight in. No, try before you buy, all that stuff. I am impressed. I promise I'm not condescending.
Because that's the other stat as well, is that people are getting married later, which often means that they've had relationships before or they've had the opportunity to live with each other. The institution has evolved and adapted in a way that, say, in the 1970s you might not have thought, because no-fault divorce came out and the marriage rate, we should say as well, has halved since 1971, meaning that there are also less divorces because there are less marriages. Holly, does marriage appeal yet?
One way to not get divorced is to not get married in the first place.
Life hack. You heard it here first.
Yes. Because obviously I'm the opposite of Amelia in this regard, in that my partner and I have been living together for 20 years.
Nothing but soft pants.
Soft pants all from the beginning and onwards. We started that way. I think it's really interesting because I'm seeing this being reported around a lot as cause for great celebration. And of course it is, if it's sparing anyone heartache, pain, the level of disruption.
Economic hardship.
Yeah, exactly. And all of the things that come often, but not always, come from divorce. But divorce rates themselves are a bit of a blunt measure, as you've already said, Jessie, when you're spelling out these stats, because they don't necessarily reflect happiness or success, like a successful marriage, in inverted commas. Like, I don't know if you listened to the No Filter with Sally Hepworth last week.
So good.
Yeah, so Sally Hepworth, obviously one of Australia's most successful fiction authors, New York Times bestseller. She's got a book coming out soon, but she went on No Filter to talk to Kate Langbrook, but not really about her book, but about her divorce. And it was a brilliant conversation because it was very respectful. It wasn't kind of sledging anyone. But she did say that it's going through what she's gone through after being married for, well over a decade, 3 kids, was that divorce was the hardest thing that has ever happened to her in her life. She talked about how completely devastating it was, and that it's changed her view of marriage. And she said, now I look around at people's marriages, and obviously she's the caveat, as you never know, but she said, whose marriage would you want? And she looks around and goes, I could think
that
of
made
one.
me so depressed.
Yeah, she's like, I could think of like 1 or 2 of. So this is what I mean when I say I think the divorce stat in itself is a blunt measure, because it doesn't necessarily mean that all the people who are not getting divorced are happy, healthy, harmonious, whatever. And also, I think that in the same way we have many more choices about how to live together now, we also have many more choices in how to separate. So I know lots of people who've separated but haven't divorced, and they may be separated for 5 to 10 years. There are all different ways of doing it. So just the divorce stat in itself, I'm not sure if it tells us that we're getting better at love. Do you think it does?
No, I think that's a really good point. And I picked up on that in that conversation too, that idea of the divorce almost took her by surprise, how hard it was and how isolating it was. And it reminded me of 2 divorce memoirs that have come out pretty recently. One is Leslie Jameson's Splinters, and the other is Sarah Manguso's book Liars, which is pitched as a novel but is pretty clearly a memoir about her divorce. Both these women were very successful writers, just like Sally Hepworth, who traveled the world and who had written about love many times in their professional life. And both of them highlighted how isolating it was to go through a divorce. Because it is now less common in certainly certain social milieus, they found that their friends withdrew from them, and that there was a sense that divorce was contagious, that if their friends gave them too much support or if they let their friends in too close during that chapter, their friends were worried they would somehow catch the divorce. And it's interesting because I looked into this, and yes, divorce is a bit contagious, it turns out, in social groups, but so is marriage. And there's this phrase, the marriage bug, that means that you're more likely to get married if people around you are getting married. And what's interesting is that among young Australians, there has been a trend towards getting married a little bit earlier than we might expect. And that's because they think it's sort of this contagious element. Marriage is contagious and divorce is contagious.
Do you think, I wondered that in the Sally No Filter interview, and I wondered if it was a life stage thing when she said, you look around and go, whose marriage would I want? Does that ring true to either of you? Do you think that there's, yes?
The thing is that the more, I think this is interesting, the more you do know about other people's relationships. And again, I don't want to sound like a cynic, because I'm genuinely not. Like I am a romantic in lots of ways, but I think that we set ourselves an impossible target with marriage. We set ourselves an impossible target in long-term relationships that, happily ever after, till death do us part, and we'll always be happy and everything will always be great, and this person will be my best friend, and, we'll co-parent brilliantly, and we'll have the same ambitions, and those ambitions will never change, and what we want from each other will never change. And the older you get and the more life you've lived and the more things you've seen around you, you just realize it's like almost impossible. I think which is why I think that, the happy, successful marriages you do see around you are definitely worth celebrating, because it's really, really hard. It's very, very hard to live most of your life with somebody else. But I think it's interesting. Sally said this, and also my friends who've been through divorce will tell me this, is that when you are going through that and have been through that, how you were saying, Amelia, is it contagious? Suddenly everyone comes and tells you the truth about their relationships. You don't go and tell your friend who looks like they've got a perfect marriage, like, actually, we haven't had sex in 2 years, or I'm thinking of having an affair, or I'm really unhappy, or he's awful to me, or whatever it is. You don't say that to your happily married friends. You say that to your friends who you can see have found a way through it, and maybe are on the other side of that. So I think that probably people who are divorced and separated know a lot more about it in a way,
Jessie, you said something interesting too when you said that marriage has evolved in ways that we might not have expected. It's sort of surprising how tenacious the idea of marriage remains, even when we have evolved in so many other ways to sort of reject traditional institutions. And it was interesting because apparently there was a recent survey done of Gen Z Australians between the ages of 15 and 24, and 70% of them said that marriage was still an aspiration. They said it's not essential for raising children, which is what we used to think of as the reason why people got married, but that they still wanted to get married. And it's fascinating that among all those traditional institutions, think of the church or think of the idea of women staying at home, marriage is the one that's really clung on.
Yeah, I like the idea that it's evolved, and there was an article in The Atlantic about it, and it had a lot of research, and obviously these are generalizations and there are lots of different exceptions, but in terms of loneliness, apparently it can be really good for men and women, and to think that it's, this institution that's been around for a really long time, yet what the research suggested was that the 1960 marriage bears very little resemblance to the 2025 marriage. And even though, of course, there are still domestic inequalities with things like child rearing and housework and all of those things, there are changes. And when they asked people in marriages what contributed to a happy marriage, like equality was one of the biggest things, them saying that they felt like there was equality within that marriage, which would not have been the answer in the 1960s.
Well, when they got married in the 1960s, the woman wouldn't have been able to open a bank account on her own.
Yeah, hold her job. I think the reason that 70% of young people want to get married is for the gram. It's taking care of your content for at least 6 months. A massive thank you to you Out Louders for listening to today's show, and to our fabulous team for putting it together. We're going to be back in your ears tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.